One of the most common questions I get about evidence is how do I make reports for my different customers, but so that I have different customers can log into there and see their own reports, but there's no chance they would ever be able to see a different customer's reports. So I'm going to show you how to build a set of apps for different customers using build time variables to ensure that the data for customer A would never be visible to the data for customer B. So let's look at, to begin with, the documentation for build time variables. So I'm going to open the evidence docs, and then I'm going to go to data sources, and if I open this a bit wider, then I'm going to build time variables. Okay, so here it explains how it works. So you can pass variables to your source queries at build time using environment variables of the format evidence underscore var double underscore variable name equals value. And this is an example of how your .env file might look to specify that. And this is an example of how you then substitute in the variable client ID into the source query. So we're doing select star from a table, and then saying where client ID equals, and then here this $sign is telling you that we're going to be interpolating the variable that we're passing to the process. And this is an example of how it would be filled in this situation. Okay, so now that we got the concept, let's start a new evidence project. So open your favorite IDE, in my case VS Code, and we're going to start by creating a new evidence project. So I'm going to create a new evidence project. I'm going to go into projects, create a new folder. I'm going to call it multiple clients create. And I'm going to create this project in this folder. And this is just downloading and scaffolding a new evidence app for me. And this is just the template. And I'm going to need a browser as well. So let me just put one of those on the other side of my screen for me. Cool. And before I go any further, I'm going to initialize this as a Git repository. So this is sort of Git init. And I actually am going to throw away that file because I don't want it. Okay, initial commit. So I haven't actually made any changes yet, but this is kind of my starting point, so I'll be able to see what I've changed. Okay, and to get everything going, I'm going to click Start Evidence. Okay, so we've not got that much going on at the moment. This is just the demo project. I've got a data source, which is the example data source, the needful things, DuckDB. This is where my preview is going to be. Put this over here. And I've got a query, which is selecting from the needful things database. And let me make this just the right size. Oh, open in evidence. Much better. Okay, so this orders.sql query is running against the needful things database. That is just a local DuckDB database, but this could be anything, BigQuery, Snowflake, any SQL database that Evidence supports. And I'm getting all the data out of this database. But this isn't really that helpful at the moment. So let me just probably delete pretty much everything in this page. All gone. And now let's say to client reporting. And so now we're going to change this source query. So it's a source query because it's in the sources folder in this needful things source. I'm going to change it by adding a where statement. So I'm going to do a where. And in this situation, let's have a look at the data before we go any further. So SQL query block, orders, select star from needful things to orders. Okay, so I've got 10,000 records, and you can see we've got first name, last name, address, state, item, category, channel group. So what I'm going to do to imagine here is I'm going to imagine that I have basically, let's say, different regional managers. So there's a regional manager for every state in this data, and they can only see, they're only allowed to see the orders for their state. So that's going to be the setup. So it's kind of like customers, but except I'm going to be using states instead of customers. So let's call it to state reporting, because that's what we're doing. So back to here. So where state equals, and then let me just go copy from the docs for a second. Where is my docs page? And then I'm going to go. Actually, I don't. It's not that helpful to copy directly. Equals state state name, and then I have to create an environment variable to correspond to that. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to create a .env file, which is a way to set environment variables when you're running a project locally. So .env, and then evidence var, and then I called it state name. So I then have to call the .env state name. And sure, let's do California. And now I need to rerun my evidence sources. So the first time I started my server, it just ran the sources as part of the server starting command. But now it's telling me I'm having an error because I don't have, it's erroring out because it can't find the state name. And that's because the server was still running after I set the environment variable. So I'm going to have to stop the server, stop evidence, and then I'm going to rerun the sources. So I'm going to go to the command palette and go evidence sources, run sources. No. Okay. Can you see it's showing me where the error is in the query, where state equals California, and the reason here is because this is a string and I didn't wrap it in single quotes. So this I now expect will work. So let me go to the command palette, run sources again. Okay, so this time it returned 1,000 rows, and that's out of I think maybe like 10,000 or 100,000 rows. So it's done like a subset of the data. And let's go confirm that's the case. So if I go back to my my evidence tab here, welcome to state reporting, I can, if I go look at these, this is actually probably, this is now dead because I need to start evidence again because I stopped it. And then all of these are now in California. So that now I know it's worked and it's only got these 1,000 results. But this isn't actually very obvious, so I'm going to just change the title to be like orders for, and then I'm putting a value component, value, data equals query name, so the query was called orders, the column is called state, and the format, it's just a string, so I don't need any format. Orders for California. So now I have a title, which is going to just tell me quickly which state report I'm looking at. Okay, all good. And now, so to give you an example of how this is working, so I can now stop evidence. So this is now going to be dead. But I can change what's being substituted in here by changing the environment variable. So if I, instead of California, I pick Texas, and go npm run sources, that's the same as doing evidence run sources in the thing. Okay, so it's finished. It's returned a different number of rows this time. Seems like it's going to have worked. And then I can start the evidence server again. And okay, now it's got the orders for Texas, and all the orders are for Texas. So working really well. Let's just create one more thing. So I'm going to create maybe let's say a bar chart of maybe I'll do another query to aggregate this data. So do a query block, SQL orders by day, and then we'll do select date trunk day order date time order date time as day count star as orders from needful things orders group by all. I think that'll work. Query name is not defined. Oh yeah, let me get rid of this. Not allowed this yet. Okay, so I've got some daily data. Let's order by one. Okay, so now it's sorted. Oh, so I don't have orders in Texas every day. Kind of interesting. Okay, so now let me put in a what's going to be a good kind of chart? A bar chart. Orders by day. In the X column, I'm going to put in the X axis. I'm going to put day. In the Y axis, I'm going to put in orders. Great. So now I've got orders by day. This is kind of spiky. Maybe I should do orders by week. Week. Orders by week. Okay, nice. This is kind of better, more interesting data because there's data for every week, and maybe I can make this a line chart now. Nice. Okay, and then I'll add a title equals orders by week in. Yeah, whatever. Cool. Okay. So this is my report that's going to go to the Texas general manager, let's say. Okay, so I've got it set up. I can, with a different environment variable, I can create a report for Texas or California or New York or any of the states in my database. And there's going to be a different app every time. And the way that Evidence ensures that only the Texas data is available to the Texas general manager is that when you run your evidence build process, so evidence build, it gets all of the data that you've run in your sources and it publishes that as part of the app that you're deploying. So it's just doing this build process now, and it's going to create a folder locally for me right now because I'm running this build locally on my computer. And the folder is going to be called build, and in it it's going to contain all the HTML, the JavaScript, the CSS to do the app, but then also it's going to contain all of the data. And that data is actually stored in a highly compressed columnar format called Parquet. Okay, so it's done, build. So this is all of the stuff I need to build the app. And if I go into data, I can actually see all of the data. This is just information about the column types. If I do this, you can see it's just telling me what column types there are in the columns. And then this is the actual data in this Parquet file. And this is just a Parquet viewer. So this is not actually what Parquet looks like, but it helps me see what's inside it. But if I go in here and I look for the state, I can see actually that every single row has this Texas data. None of the California data came in. And that's because I just ran the sources, just get the Texas data. So this is going to work. Okay, so fine, done on my local computer. So let me commit these changes, say client or state reporting, commit. Let me get rid of these, which I don't care about. Commit. And then I'm going to publish this, and I'm going to call it short Archie word, multiple clients, make it public repo. Publishing on GitHub. Okay, so now I have my GitHub repo. I know I go into pages, index. This is all the markdown. row. Okay, so I'm going to deploy this. So I need to now go to whatever my deployment platform is. I'm going to use Evidence Cloud because it's the easiest way to publish evidence projects. So if I go here, Command T, Evidence Cloud is at evidence.app, and you can log in with GitHub. So let me do that. And I am going to do this on my personal account. Okay, so I'm going to say add project, and I'm going to have to add my new repository, or maybe it'll be there. Let's find out. And I called it multiple clients. Okay, it was already there. Branch, main, domain. Okay, so let's call it multi. Actually, let's think about this. Let me call this state multi-client Texas, and I will tell you about a little bit about why that is Texas in a second. So, okay, create. It is a public website, and here, so this is where I need to set things up myself. So I need to give a specific environment variable for my Texas deployment, and it's the one that I had in my env file. So evidence file state name equals Texas. Okay, so I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to deploy this on Texas. It's going to take a minute as it does it. Okay, but I'm actually not done. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back, and so I've created this one called multiple clients. Now I'm going to create another one. And I'm going to create it from the same repository. So the code is the same, multiple clients. And I should have actually called this one. So I'm going to call this California, multiple clients California, and the domain is going to be multiple. I already forgot what I called the other one. Multiple clients California. That seems fine. Okay, so I'm creating a second project here. And in this second project, I'm going to use a different environment variable. So here, I'm not going to use Texas. I'm actually going to use California. Is that right? California. Yeah, save. And this file, this .env file, is git ignored. So you can see it's kind of like grayed out. And in my git ignore file, I've got the idea. So this is not uploaded to GitHub. So when I'm publishing from GitHub, evidence doesn't know anything about that, which is why I'm specifying in the evidence settings what the environment variables are. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to deploy this project as well. Okay, so now go back to here, and I have a couple of different, I've got multiple clients, and this one is now deployed. So I've got multi-client Texas here. And if I go here, orders for Texas. And then if I go back, and where did I want to be? I want to be multiple clients, California. Okay, multiple clients, California. Orders for California. It's just showing the California data. Okay, so in principle here, I could make as many different of these sites as I wanted. So I could make 50. I've got 50 states, but you can see that I have to create the projects individually. So there is kind of like a scalability thing. So if you've got thousands of projects that you want to do here, you wouldn't necessarily want to do it like this because you're going to end up with thousands of different deployments. But if you've got a small number, I'd say less than about 50, then this is definitely an approach that could work. Because now, if I make a change to my app, I don't have to update everyone individually. So let's say I'm going to just add another chart here. So let me do just a big value. And I'm going to just do a query which just gets me the total sales. Total sales, select select sum, sales. Let's do sales from orders. Great. And then I just put total sales value is total sales format equals USD. I should probably check this works before I publish it. Okay, so I've got a nice total sales chip for Texas. So I'm now going to commit this, add total sales. And when I go back into Evidence Cloud, this new commit is, wait, so this is the Texas one. The new commit has caused a new build to start on this, the Texas one, but it's also, if I go into the California one, it's also started a new build for the California one. So I've not had to re-trigger each individual deployment here. They're already working for each other. When I do a commit to the single source code repo, then I'm going to get all of my sites updating. The final thing here is something that I've done just for, I guess, the demo here, is I've created these as public sites. But in reality, the whole point of doing this process is that you want to restrict who's going to see each of those sites. So the way you do that is you go into users, and then you'd add the users that you want to be able to see that specific site as users for that site. So you'd say, you know, this is the Texas general manager, so I'm going to add their account to the Texas site, and then I'm going to go into the California site, and I'm going to add the California general manager there. So that's kind of another reason why this is suitable for, you know, 50 or so apps, sort of different users, but probably not for thousands, because you'd have to configure the different permissions for every different deployment for each person you want to log in. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the comments. And if you have any other things you want videos on, just let me know.